Hey y'all, Mike and Sarah here again with CU Jiu-Jitsu. We're going to cover a few quick attacks from the back. So this is a nice back attack series that I like to do, especially in the gi. So since we're in the gi, we're going to cover what we're going to do with the collar and all this. Special guest appearance by Coda. This is Sarah's kid bringing us some balls that he likes to play with.
There you go.
Say hi, Coda. Coda's 1.5. He's been spending time on the mats for, roughly about, what would you say, about 6 months now?
His
maybe even
first
longer?
class was at 2 weeks old, and then he's been on the mats consistently for like 4 or 5 months now.
So yeah, usually pretty good about being in class, and so it's awesome to help usher the next generation in. So back to our attacks here. So what we do is we're coming from our seatbelt. So usually in our seatbelt, we're going the hand that's the underhook hand, our quote-unquote weak side hand, over the top the strong side hand that's normally your choking arm, right? So from here, guys, my weak side hand is going to open this gi, and I'm going to feed it in. I like to pull the gi open versus turn it shut. It's just a preference. If you watch some other instructionals or your own professor or coach, they might have a preference for this. Some don't do anything with it. I like to open it up. It kind of creates this nice little handle on the inside here of the lapel for me, okay? So what I do is I open and I feed. Once I'm feeding here, now the first choke that we do in our series here is going to be our 2-collar choke, otherwise called a zipper choke in some systems. This bottom hand comes across. All it's looking to do is pull the slack out. So I find the other lapel, and I'm just going to start pulling the slack out. Remember, to pull the slack out, I'm pulling it down towards her belly button or her feet. And also remember, we're never usually seated up in this position, right? This is good for demonstrating, but we're probably going to be on our side, all the way pushed back, something of that nature, maybe even turtle,
Yeah,
So, thank you, Coda.
Thank you.
So here we are. So I feed and I look for the other lapel and I start to pull the slack out. What pulling the slack out doing is it's making it tight on Sarah's neck here. We're just locking it in, the gi coming all the way across. I'm using the first 2 or 3 inches of my wrist here and the bones in her neck. Okay? So I make my fist here and that gets all tightened up. And then what I do is I kind of do this. I kind of like do almost like a ride the motorcycle and then I go fishing. Right? So I use this as like casting or fly rod or something. At least that's the analogy that I always learned, so we do that. So I come here, I rev and I fish. I get here, I start pulling it down. Now, my goal is to stay tight, right? I see a lot of people pull out and across, and while it can work, what I find works best here is I'm going to look and provide a little rotation. I want to take this elbow, my strong side elbow, and pull it behind her neck. Okay, or behind her shoulder rather. So I'm pulling this down. That's the action of the choke. This hand going down. Okay, this elbow behind. And I'm just going to stay really tight on her like a backpack. That's my first one. She pulls my hand away, my choke hand away. Now I look to chicken wing inside the arm here. We come palm to ourselves, karate chop behind her head. Now we're in a single collar or single arm choke here. Same, almost like a half of a rear naked choke and half of a collar choke. Now, elbow behind, stay tight, and I'm shoving her head into the choke. Now, whether you choose to go palm into the back of their head or the knuckles into the back of their head is preference. You see it in MMA, palm because of the gloves, okay? However, in pure jiu-jitsu, we usually like to go knuckles because we don't want them to be able to grab our hand and pull it over their head easier. So we're shooting it behind her head. I'm never bringing it out in front and coming over. She pulls it off, I bring it to myself, and I shoot it behind. And then everything's the same as we did with our first choke. Boom. Now, second one, or last one in our chain is like, oh, I'm not getting it, or maybe her arm's so strong I can't get it. Now we go bow and arrow, probably one of the strongest, if not the strongest gi chokes you can do. I'm going to go my feet to our hips. 1, 2. Notice we're going towards the side that my arm is over the shoulder. 1, 2. I push on her hip a little bit. So if you're a person who struggles about making an angle here, so you're like, gotta hop around or put my hand on the ground, try not to do that. Try to use your feet if possible. Foot on the hip, foot across, and I push. When I push here, guys, after I push, this foot coming across her hip is just making a new belt. I open and I let her fall. Let's rotate. Other way. Right there. Perfect. I let her fall, so you see she's falling into my lap. I'm looking to underhook or grab her pant leg from the outside. This leg is coming over the top. This is just kind of the basic variation. There's several different variations. Here's your key concept here. My elbow decides whether she escapes or not. So, if my elbow is high and she can pull my elbow over her head, she escapes. If my elbow is low, pulling back to my hip, she does not escape, okay? So, from our finish here, right, I pulled her down. I'm here in this position. 1, cross over the top of it. 2, hugging the leg or pulling the pant leg. And from here, guys, everything's the same. Fish. Elbow comes behind her shoulder. So as my elbow comes into my hip pocket, and I go fishing as I stretch her out. Boom. You see, I don't have to go all the way back here. It's just this motion. It's hard to see, I know, but like this motion right here as I pull my elbow back. That's all I'm doing. It's like I'm slicing around her neck, okay? And so that's our bow and arrow choke. Right here. So let's go through the whole thing one more time. First is 2 collar choke. Open, feed, find the other lapel, pull the lapel down towards the belly button, pull the elbow back. Second one, single collar choke. My hand comes off the lapel, comes behind her, or in the crook of her elbow, pulling her arm back, chop behind, force her in as I do it. Third one, bow and arrow, hand comes out, I'm looking for the leg. 1, step across, drop her in, open up, secure her in place, elbow back to my hip, find our choke. So that's our series. That's what we call our series A. That's our golden, kind of like big 3 from the back. If you can do all 3 of these, you can go rotate back and forth, up and down the ladder, depending on how they're defending. Sarah, thanks for helping me out. Os, guys.
That's good. Thanks. Bravo.